Everything you learned in school about human history might be incomplete. What if advanced civilizations existed long before we thought possible? What if evidence of impossible technology has been hiding in plain sight? We're about to show you 6 discoveries that challenge everything mainstream science teaches. Some researchers claim these artifacts shouldn't exist according to our current timeline. Others say there are logical explanations. You decide. But I warn you, once you see this evidence, you can't unsee it. Let's start in a restricted desert zone where something truly bizarre was photographed before the images mysteriously disappeared from the internet. Rising from the sand dunes is what some investigators describe as a massive metallic tube with rivets. Photographs allegedly show it partially buried, with one end driven deep into the earth and the other end, which some claim shows engine-like structures pointing toward the sky. Official reports call it an ancient ritual pillar, but engineers who've examined the photographs say the shape seems aerodynamic, designed for high-speed flight rather than religious ceremony. What makes this particularly strange, according to some chemists, is the apparent lack of corrosion, despite being buried for what geological surveys suggest could be 12,000 years. The metal appears pristine in the images. Those who studied the photographs claim to see sophisticated fuel delivery systems and cooling tubes in the exposed sections. These features, they argue, could only be manufactured in controlled environments, possibly even vacuum conditions. The aerodynamic profile is what troubles aviation experts most. Ancient priests wouldn't need to understand air resistance or supersonic design principles. But this shape, if the photographs are accurate, seems optimized for exactly that purpose. Some researchers have proposed a disturbing theory. This could be an escape pod, a technological ark built by those who knew catastrophe was coming and tried to leave Earth before it struck. Perhaps something went wrong. Perhaps the launch never happened, and this metallic cylinder remained as a monument to an evacuation that failed. But any spacecraft, no matter how advanced, requires a control system. And that's where our next discovery becomes truly unsettling. While this alleged rocket remained in the sand, another piece of ancient technology may have fallen into the deep ocean. Early in the 20th century, sponge divers near the Greek island of Antikythera recovered what appeared to be a corroded stone from the seafloor. For decades, it sat forgotten in a museum. When it finally dried out and cracked open, it revealed something that left scientists speechless. Inside that ancient encrustation was a complex mechanism of bronze gears, dials, and pointer arms. Modern X-ray analysis, according to published research, shows it's essentially a mechanical computer. The precision of the gear teeth, some experts claim, seems impossible to achieve with hand tools or files. The workmanship suggests laser cutting or advanced machining, technologies we assume didn't exist in ancient times. Historians initially suggested the Antikythera mechanism was a simple calendar for tracking planting seasons. But that explanation falls apart under scrutiny. This device, according to researchers who studied it, could calculate planetary positions for celestial bodies that ancient science supposedly didn't even know existed. Some investigators believe it might have been more than an astronomical calculator. Perhaps it was a navigation system for journeys not just through space, but through time itself, or possibly a control interface for something far more dangerous, something capable of erasing entire civilizations. But every computer, whether bronze or silicon, requires power. And it appears our distant ancestors may have discovered energy sources we're only beginning to understand. The trail of this mysterious power leads us deep into African mines to a place called Oklo. In the 1970s, physicists analyzing uranium ore noticed something alarming. The uranium was depleted of the key isotope needed for nuclear reactions. Someone, or something, had already used this uranium before we found it. The scientific explanation claims this was a natural nuclear reactor that somehow operated for hundreds of thousands of years without human intervention. But that theory, critics argue, requires extraordinary coincidences. For a reactor to function safely without exploding, it needs perfectly pure water and precise control mechanisms. Yet at Oklo, this process allegedly maintained itself flawlessly for millennia. What's more troubling is how the radioactive waste was contained. The dangerous byproducts were carefully isolated in what some describe as deliberate storage chambers, preventing environmental contamination. This matches exactly how modern nuclear facilities handle their waste. Nature doesn't build containment systems. Some researchers suggest we are standing on the ruins of an ancient power plant. 2 billion years ago, they claim, turbines hummed and lights blazed, providing energy to cities that have since been erased from geological memory. If true, we didn't discover nuclear power first. We simply found the instruction manual left by whoever came before us, and that same energy may have destroyed them. But if they had this much electricity, there should be evidence of motors and machinery that used it. One particularly strange artifact was discovered in Egypt, and it continues to puzzle engineers who examine it. In Cairo's museum, among ordinary pottery, sits an unusual circular object called the Sabu disc. It's a stone plate with curved inward blades and a central hub. Archaeologists label it a ceremonial bowl or lamp. But try pouring oil or placing fruit in a dish with a hole in the middle. Any mechanic immediately recognizes what this actually resembles. The form precisely matches components from powerful modern pumps or ventilation fans. Creating such thin, curved blades from brittle metasilt stone would be nearly impossible by hand. This stone shatters like dry cookie when struck with a hammer. To cut this shape would require machinery spinning at extreme speeds with cutting tools harder than diamond. What's remarkable is what happens when you test it. Researchers who've created accurate replicas and spun them at high speeds found they function as powerful turbines, moving water or air with tremendous force. The blade design isn't decorative. It's optimized for performance. This isn't pottery. Some argue it's a fossilized machine part, perhaps a propeller from an ancient aircraft, or a pump that cooled that nuclear reactor we just discussed. Ancient people may have discovered this broken component when it was still metal, not understanding its purpose, but recognizing it as something sacred. They painstakingly carved a stone copy to place in a king's tomb. Its cargo cult worship, reverence for objects whose function was forgotten. We're looking at a stone replica of an engine, but who built the original? This next discovery takes us to June 1936 in the scorching heat of Texas. Max Hahn and his wife Emma were hiking along the dry bed of Red Creek, seeking relief from the oppressive heat. Emma noticed an unusual rock formation on an outcrop. Something appeared to be embedded in the limestone, resembling a piece of old wood. They took it home. For over 10 years, this strange stone sat on their shelf, occasionally used as a doorstop. Finally, their curious son grabbed a chisel and hammer, determined to see what was inside. The limestone cracked open, and what emerged has sparked heated debate ever since. Embedded in the rock was a metal hammer with an iron head and partial wooden handle. At first glance, nothing remarkable. Perhaps someone lost a tool a century ago and it got encased in sediment. But when geologists examined it, some became deeply troubled by what they observed. The rock formation, they claimed, belonged to the Edwards Formation, dated to the Lower Cretaceous period. According to their analysis, 140 million years old. That's the age of dinosaurs. Long before humans existed, an era when our ancestors were small rodent-like creatures hiding in burrows. The thought of a metal hammer existing in that world seems impossible. Skeptics immediately called it a hoax, suggesting miners had inserted the hammer into soft rock. Laboratory analysis, however, presented puzzling results. The wooden handle hadn't rotted despite its alleged age. According to some reports, it had undergone a complex fossilization process, partially transforming into coal. Researchers claim you cannot fake this in a garage. Turning wood into coal inside solid rock requires enormous pressure, absence of oxygen, and, crucially, vast amounts of time. But the metal head revealed something even stranger. Chemical analysis allegedly showed the iron was nearly pure, 96.6% iron with chlorine and sulfur, but virtually no carbon. Ordinary iron always contains carbon impurities. Carbon makes it hard but causes rust. This iron had no carbon at all. Modern metallurgy can only produce such pure iron in sophisticated vacuum furnaces using powerful magnetic fields. The idea of a primitive blacksmith achieving this seems implausible. And here's the final mystery. The hammer shows no rust, despite being exposed to air for nearly a century after removal from the protective rock. Analysis suggests the chlorine atoms somehow created a molecular-level protective film. Whoever made this tool, some argue, knew the secret of eternal iron. We spend billions fighting corrosion. This unknown craftsman from the dinosaur era allegedly solved it effortlessly. Who could have owned this object? Imagine a hot afternoon in the Cretaceous period. A being walks along an ancient shore, bipedal, intelligent, carrying this hammer, perhaps repairing a crashed vehicle or building shelter. Suddenly, danger approaches. The creature flees in panic, dropping the tool into viscous mud. The hammer remains there forever, a message across the abyss of time. Was it a time traveler who broke the most important rule? Or do we know nothing about Earth's true history? There's a disturbing theory that civilizations rise and fall in cycles on our planet. We build cities, invent technology, reach for the stars, then catastrophe strikes and we vanish. Millions of years pass. Nature erases our skyscrapers. New intelligent beings emerge and start over, unaware of those who came before. This hammer might be a farewell message from a previous humanity, from those who lived here before or alongside the dinosaurs. If they disappeared, despite their power and knowledge, what awaits us? To see our next piece of alleged evidence, we need to set aside shovels and pick up powerful electron microscopes. Because the most shocking claims about ancient technology exist in a world smaller than a speck of dust. This story takes us to 1991, deep in the Ural wilderness, where only helicopters and tracked vehicles can reach. Geological teams were searching for gold deposits. These experienced prospectors spent their days drilling frozen earth and sifting tons of sand through icy river water. They expected to find only gold flakes and worthless rock. Instead, they discovered something that made them forget about gold entirely. When they brought up soil samples from extreme depths, strange glittering objects appeared among the familiar sand, initially dismissed as debris, perhaps fragments from old machinery or nearby military testing grounds. But the deeper they dug, the more they found. Not dozens, but thousands of these mysterious fragments. Most disturbing, they allegedly came from depths of 10 to 12 meters, embedded in permafrost layers that some geologists claim haven't been disturbed for over 100,000 years. No modern equipment could have pushed these delicate objects so deep into ground as hard as stone. They must have been deposited, researchers suggest, when woolly mammoths still roamed the Ural forests. Laboratory examination reportedly revealed something extraordinary. Under powerful microscopes, these weren't random metal fragments. They appeared to be perfect spirals and coils, but impossibly small. The largest measured a few centimeters, while the smallest were allegedly hundreds of times thinner than human hair. Their size was measured in nanometers. Imagine a coil you cannot see with the naked eye, yet perfectly wound, turn by turn, following mathematical precision. Nature doesn't create such things. Nature makes chaos, crystals, fractals, but never produces perfect industrial springs from pure metal. This appeared to be the product of intelligence, of highly sophisticated engineering. Creating microscopic components like these is barely possible today, in the 21st century, and only with enormous difficulty. It requires absolutely sterile laboratories, powerful computers, and robotic manipulators. Human hands are too crude for such delicate work. Chemical analysis added another layer of mystery. Larger spirals consisted of pure copper, but the microscopic ones, invisible to the naked eye, were allegedly made from rare metals, tungsten and molybdenum. Tungsten is Earth's most heat-resistant metal. Melting it requires temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than some star surfaces and twice the heat of volcanic lava. To work with tungsten demands specialized electric furnaces, vacuum conditions, and complex equipment. An ordinary forge provides maybe 700 degrees at best. Picture this scene 100,000 years ago in frozen wilderness. surrounded by snow and ice age megafauna. And somehow, according to these claims, someone was operating industrial-scale facilities, melting tungsten, drawing it into threads finer than hair, and winding them into perfect nanoscale spirals. For what purpose? These aren't decorations. You can't wear jewelry you cannot see. Some researchers suggest these are technical components, parts of something enormous and complex. The scale of discovery is what troubles investigators most. The spirals weren't found individually but allegedly in massive quantities, suggesting huge industrial operations producing technology we barely understand. Theories range from disturbing to terrifying. Some physicists propose these could be smart dust, billions of microscopic nanobots capable of flying through air, assembling into formations, conducting surveillance, or transmitting information. Perhaps we found remnants of an ancient internet that existed not in wires, but dispersed directly through the atmosphere. Others suggest climate control systems. Maybe ancient civilizations could manipulate weather, summoning rain or dispersing clouds by releasing these spirals into the sky. Or perhaps they're engine components from legendary flying vehicles described in ancient texts. What's most unsettling, if these claims are accurate, our entire planet might be a vast graveyard of technology. Look at your smartphone, the walls around you, the pavement outside. You probably think this represents the peak of human achievement, that our civilization is permanent and eternal. Those who came before us thought exactly the same thing. They took pride in their machines, made elaborate plans, believed in forever. But look at what remains of them. A corroded hammer in stone, a microscopic spring in dirt, radioactive uranium ore. That's their entire legacy, their final chapter. And we may be heading toward the same conclusion. Consider the pattern emerging from these discoveries, if we accept even some of these claims as worthy of investigation. First, we allegedly found evidence of a sophisticated escape vehicle buried in desert sand. Technology designed for space travel, built by those who knew disaster was approaching. Then we discovered what appears to be an ancient mechanical computer, capable of calculations that shouldn't have been possible with the tools available at the time. A navigation system, perhaps, or a control mechanism for something we don't yet understand. Next came signs of nuclear technology dating back millions or billions of years, suggesting someone mastered atomic energy long before us. We found what researchers describe as precision-engineered machine components in Egypt, apparently designed for industrial applications. A tool made from impossibly pure metal, allegedly embedded in rock from the age of dinosaurs. And finally, evidence of nanotechnology that we can barely replicate even with our most advanced facilities. If these claims hold even partial truth, they suggest something profound. This isn't random. This is systematic evidence of civilizations that rose to incredible heights, then vanished completely. Some researchers propose a terrifying theory about Earth's history. They suggest civilizations don't progress in a straight line. Instead, they rise and fall in cycles. We build cities. We invent technology. We reach for the stars. Then catastrophe strikes, and we disappear. Millions of years pass. Nature reclaims everything. Our concrete and steel crumble to dust. New intelligent species emerge and start from scratch, unaware of everyone who came before. And the cycle begins again. If this theory is correct, we're not the first technological civilization. We might not even be the 5th or 10th. We're simply the latest in a long line of species that climbed to the top, believed ourselves invincible, and then fell into oblivion. The hammer might be a message from previous humanity. The nanospirals could be debris from civilizations that achieved what we're only beginning to attempt. What destroyed them? Nuclear war, climate catastrophe, something else entirely? We don't know. But whatever it was proved powerful enough to erase nearly all traces of their existence. That should terrify us. Because if they couldn't survive, despite their advanced technology and knowledge, what makes us think we can? We face similar threats today: nuclear weapons, environmental collapse, artificial intelligence beyond our control. Any of these could trigger the same catastrophic cycle. Time isn't a straight line moving forward. According to this theory, it's a circle, and that circle is closing. We are repeating the mistakes of the ancients, step by step, bringing ourselves closer to the same end. The evidence lies buried beneath our feet, in museums, in restricted zones, in laboratories where researchers quietly study things that don't fit the official narrative. Most people will never see it. Most will never question the comfortable story they were taught in school. But you've seen it now. You know something might be hiding in our planet's past, something important, something we've chosen to forget or ignore. So what's really beneath our feet? Some researchers propose a controversial theory. Earth isn't a pristine world created just for us. It's a depleted mining operation, a resource extraction site that's been picked clean multiple times by civilizations we can barely imagine. According to this view, we're not living on a paradise planet. We're living on industrial ruins. Every mineral deposit we discover might be leftovers from previous harvesting operations. Every strange artifact could be discarded debris from forgotten factories. The geological record, these theorists argue, shows evidence of massive resource extraction on scales far beyond anything we've achieved. Continental reshaping, oceanic disruption, atmospheric modification. Perhaps we're the cleanup crew, arriving millions of years after the work was finished, scavenging whatever scraps remained. This theory would explain why so many natural formations seem impossibly geometric, why certain mineral deposits appear in patterns that suggest deliberate organization, why we keep finding objects that don't match the timeline we've constructed. We're told these are coincidences, natural processes, misidentified rocks. But what if they're not? What if we're walking on the rust of ancient machines, drinking water that flows through burned-out circuit boards, calling industrial waste natural resources? The implications are staggering. If previous civilizations exhausted this planet and disappeared, we're simply repeating their pattern, mining the same depleted resources, building with the same limited materials, racing toward the same inevitable collapse. We think we're progressing. Actually, we might be stuck in a loop, endlessly replaying the same tragedy. And there's something even more disturbing to consider. If Earth has been mined and abandoned before, who did it? Where did they go? Are they still watching? Some researchers suggest the cycle isn't accidental. Perhaps it's designed. Perhaps Earth serves as a testing ground, where civilizations are allowed to develop just far enough before being reset. We think we're alone and independent. Actually, we might be subjects in an experiment we don't understand. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe there's no grand plan, just the brutal reality that planets have limits. Resources run out. Civilizations exhaust their environments and die. We're facing the same resource depletion our alleged predecessors confronted, the same environmental degradation, the same technological risks. Will we break the cycle? Or will we become another mysterious layer in the geological record, leaving behind our own inexplicable artifacts for whoever comes next? The choice, supposedly, is ours. But is it really? If the cycle has repeated multiple times, breaking it might be impossible. The hammer in the stone tells us we're not the first. The nanospirals suggest we're not the most advanced. The nuclear reactor proves we're not the most powerful. We're just the current iteration in an endless series. Time will tell if we're the ones who finally escape, or if we're simply adding our bones to Earth's growing cemetery of failed civilizations. Look around you one more time. Everything you see, everything you take for granted, might be temporary, fragile, built on the ruins of those who thought exactly what you're thinking right now. They believed they would last forever. They were wrong. Will we be different? If this information concerns you, if you think others deserve to know what we've uncovered, share this widely. Subscribe to stay informed about what mainstream science might be overlooking. And comment below. Do you believe we can escape this cycle? Or are we doomed to become another unexplained mystery for future archaeologists? The evidence is here. The pattern is clear. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. But decide quickly. Time, according to this theory, is running out.